October 5, 2008. Michael Torres was descending into the darkness of the abandoned old Morgan mine when his flashlight caught something bright in the gloom. A child's pink jacket. Here, 120 meters underground, where no human had set foot for 11 years. But the worst was yet to come. A note written in a child's handwriting. Mom said to go to exit number 3. The man in the helmet will help us. How did an 8-year-old girl and her mother end up in this cursed mine? And why were they never found? To understand this mystery, we need to go back 11 years. November 15, 1997. The town of Silverton was preparing for a snowstorm. Meteorologists were predicting the heaviest snowfall in a decade. Before we begin the story, please write which city you are from. We are very interested to know where you are watching our video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your rating. Mary Collins was checking her students' homework at the kitchen table. Her daughter Emily was drawing in the living room. It was a typical Saturday for a typical family. "Mom, can I have some new pencils?" Emily showed her mother her stubs of colored pencils. "Let's go to the store before the storm hits. We can get some groceries while we're out," Mary said, glancing out the window. The sky was filling with leaden clouds. At 4:30, they left the house in their blue Toyota Camry. Their neighbor, Mrs. Parker, waved to them from her window. She remembered the time because the news was just starting on TV. It was a 15-minute drive to the store. A simple trip. Nothing unusual. But Mary and Emily never made it to the store. David Collins returned home from Durango at 8 o'clock in the evening. The house greeted him with darkness and silence. Snow was already falling in thick flakes. "Mary? Emily?" He turned on the light in the hallway. There was a note on the table. "We went to the store. We'll be back by 6. Dinner is in the oven." It was 8 o'clock. They had been gone for 4 hours. David dialed his wife's number. Long beeps. Answering machine. He dialed again. Answering machine again. He called the store. No, Mary Collins hadn't been in today. Maybe she went to the supermarket in Durango? But why drive 50 miles in a coming storm? By 10 o'clock, David had called everyone he knew. Hospitals, relatives. No one had seen Mary or Emily. At midnight, he drove to the police station. Sergeant Miller took his statement. "Mr. Collins, in this weather, they could just be stuck somewhere. Maybe they decided to wait it out at a friend's house." "What friends? I called everyone." "We'll start an official search in 48 hours. That's the protocol for adults." "But they have a child with them." "Then in 24 hours. If they haven't shown up by morning, come back." David didn't sleep all night. He drove around in his car, cruising the snow-covered streets. He checked parking lots. He peered into the windows of cafes. On the morning of November 17th, Detective Robert Hansen arrived at the station. A large man with graying temples, he carefully studied the report. "Are you sure they went to the store?" "Yes, they left a note." "Can you show it to me?" Hansen looked at the note. It was a regular piece of paper from a notebook. Mary's handwriting. Nothing suspicious. "What route do they usually take?" "Highway 550 to the Fork, then right to the shopping center." "We'll organize a search along the route as soon as the storm subsides." The storm raged for another day. On November 18th, a police helicopter took to the sky. Search teams worked on the ground. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a report came in. A blue Toyota Camry had been spotted on the side of a mountain road 7 miles from the main highway. Hansen arrived at the scene 20 minutes later. The car was parked on a narrow dirt road leading to some old mines. It was almost completely covered in snow. Why did they turn here? David couldn't believe his eyes. Hansen opened the car door. The keys were in the ignition. Emily's favorite doll was in the back seat. The rearview mirror was broken. "Looks like someone hit it," the officer pointed to the cracks. "Or they did it themselves when they braked suddenly." Hansen examined the interior. There were no signs of a struggle. Mary's purse was on the front seat. Her wallet was there. The money hadn't been touched. This wasn't a robbery, the detective concluded. Search dogs picked up a trail from the car. It led deep into the forest, toward abandoned mines in the area. But after 200 meters, the trail ended. Snowfall had destroyed all traces. "How many mines are there here?" Hansen asked a local ranger. 17 main entrances, and dozens of auxiliary ones. It was a silver mining area in the 19th century. "We need to check them all." "That will take weeks. Some of the entrances are blocked, others are flooded." On the 5th day of the search, Hansen called David to the station. "Mr. Collins, I need to ask you some personal questions. Did your wife have any enemies?" "Enemies? She's an elementary school teacher." "Any strange acquaintances? Admirers?" "No, nothing like that." "Any financial problems?" David shook his head. "We're not rich, but we live comfortably. I have a steady job as an engineer in Durango." "Was your wife hiding anything? Has she been acting strangely lately?" David thought for a moment. "She's been pensive for the last 2 weeks. She's been looking at old photo albums a lot." "What kind of albums?" "Family albums. Her grandparents. They lived in Silverton in the 50s. Hansen made a note in his notebook. On November 25th, the search was officially suspended. It was too dangerous to go into old mines in winter. It would resume in the spring. But Detective Hansen continued his investigation. Something wouldn't let him rest. Why did Mary turn off the safe road? What was she looking for in the mine area? On December 3rd, he got his first lead. Jimmy Valdez, a gas station attendant on the highway, remembered an important detail. "Yes, they stopped by. Around 5 in the afternoon. They filled up the tank." "Were they alone?" "Yes, but—" Jimmy hesitated. "While I was filling up the car, a man approached them, an older man, wearing a work jacket." "Do you know him?" "No, I'd never seen him before. He said something to Mrs. Collins through the window. She nodded. Then he went back to the pickup truck and drove away." "Describe the pickup truck." "An old Ford, from the 80s. Red, but the paint was peeling." "Did you get the license plate number?" "No, but there was a sticker on it, a mining company emblem, an old one, from the 70s. Hansen checked the registration of all red Ford pickups in the county. 43 vehicles. He started calling the owners. On December 27th, he found the man he was looking for. Frank Morrison, 61 years old, former owner of the old Morgan mine. Morrison lived in a small house on the outskirts of town. He didn't answer right away. He was a wiry old man with deep wrinkles and calloused miner's hands. "Detective Hansen, I have some questions about the disappearance of Mary and Emily Collins." Morrison silently let him into the house. "Did you talk to Mary Collins on November 15th at the gas station?" "I don't remember." "A witness saw you, and your pickup truck." Morrison poured himself some coffee. His hands were shaking slightly. "Maybe I did. I talked to a lot of people." "What did you talk about?" "I don't remember." "Mr. Morrison, a woman and her child are missing. You were the last person to speak to them." The old man put down his cup. "I warned her about the storm, told her not to drive on the mountain roads." "That's all?" "That's all." "Why did you approach her?" "I recognized her. She's a teacher. She taught my great-nephew." Hansen sensed that the old man was hiding something, but he had no proof. "Did you own the old Morgan mine?" "Yes, until '92. Then I closed it. It wasn't profitable anymore." "Mary and Emily were found near the entrance to that mine. Their car." Morrison turned pale. "I don't know anything about that." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Hansen left empty-handed, but his instincts told him that Morrison was lying. On January 5, 1988, Hansen received a strange package. There was no return address. Inside was a page from a diary. The handwriting was Mary Collins. November 8th. He came again. He stood behind the school and watched. Emily must not know the truth about her grandfather. No one must ever find out what happened in 52. Hansen read it 3 times. Who had come? What truth? What had happened in 52? He drove to David's house. David had never heard of any secret visitor. Show me your wife's family albums. David brought 3 thick albums. Hansen leafed through the yellowed photographs. Here was Mary's grandfather, Patrick O'Brien, a miner. Here he was with his co-workers at the mine entrance. The caption read, Morgan Mine, 1951. Stop. Morgan Mine. That's the mine. David, what do you know about Mary's grandfather? Not much. He died in a mining accident in 52. Mary was only 2 years old. She didn't remember him. Hansen stared at the photo. Patrick O'Brien was standing in the center. To his right was a young man with distinctive features. He looked a lot like Frank Morrison. The detective went to the archives. He found newspapers from March 1952. The headline read, Tragedy in the Morgan Mine, 3 dead. The article described the collapse. Patrick O'Brien, John Smith, and Henry Morrison had been killed. Henry Morrison was Frank's father. But then Hansen found something strange. A month after the accident, ownership of the mine was transferred to the Morrison family, although according to the documents, 50% belonged to the O'Briens. Patrick's widow, Mary's grandmother, received only $1,000 in compensation, and she signed a waiver of all claims. A very strange deal, especially considering that a year later a rich vein of silver was found in the mine. The Morrisons became rich. The O'Briens were left with nothing. Hansen began to dig deeper. He found a witness to the accident, 90-year-old Ted Kraus. It was a strange accident. The old man shook his head. The collapse happened in an old tunnel. No one ever went there. Why they went in there is a mystery. Maybe they were looking for something? Maybe. But here's what's strange. They found John and Henry's bodies, but not Patrick's. They said he was crushed to death, but some people were whispering. About what? That Patrick survived, that he was seen a week later in a neighboring town. But those are just rumors. On January 10th, Hansen received a second anonymous package. Again, it was a page from Mary's diary. November 12th, I found some documents in my grandmother's things. My grandfather was murdered. It wasn't an accident. I have proof. But if I go to the police, Emily will be in danger. They're watching us. Hansen felt the puzzle pieces start to fall into place. Mary had learned the truth about her grandfather's death. Someone didn't want that truth to come out. And now she was gone. He drove back to Morrison's house. This time, the old man didn't even open the door. I know you're home, Mr. Morrison. I know about the accident in 52. Silence. Your father and Patrick O'Brien were partners. What happened in that mine? The door opened slightly. Morrison looked 10 years older. Go away, detective. It's for your own good. Do you know where Mary and Emily are? I don't know anything, and you'd better forget about this case. Is that a threat? It's advice. Some secrets are best left buried. Morrison slammed the door shut. On January 15th, something strange happened. David Collins received a letter. It was in Mary's handwriting. David, we're safe. Don't look for us. Someday you'll understand. I'm sorry. Love, M. Hansen sent the letter for analysis. The handwriting was genuine. But the expert noticed a detail. It had been written under duress. The hand was shaking. She wrote under duress, the expert concluded. But the bosses decided otherwise. Since Mary was alive and had written that she was safe, the case was closed. This is nonsense! Hansen banged his fist on his boss's desk. They're being held against their will. You have no proof, Robert. Maybe she ran away from her husband. It happens. With a child? In winter? Leaving all her things behind? The case is closed. Get on with other investigations. But Hansen couldn't forget. Emily's blue eyes stared at him from the photograph every night. Where was she? What had happened to her? March 1988. Hansen officially closed the case but continued his investigation in his spare time. Every weekend he went to the mines, studied old maps, and interviewed old-timers. On March 20th, something strange happened. Someone broke into Hansen's house during the night. Nothing was stolen, but all the papers related to the Collins case were scattered around. A note was left on the table. "Stop digging, or we'll bury you." Hansen was not afraid. On the contrary, he realized he was on the right track. Someone really didn't want him to continue. He began to act secretly. He made copies of all the documents and hid them in a bank-safe deposit box. He started a second notebook, which he always carried with him. In April, the snow began to melt. Search parties resumed their work in the mine area. But Hansen knew they weren't looking in the right place. If Mary had written that she was safe, it meant they had been taken far away. Or, the thought came to him suddenly, what if they were still there, in the mines? What if they were being hidden in one of the deep tunnels? He took out the old maps of the Morgan mine. The tunnel system was huge, more than 30 kilometers of underground passages. Some levels were flooded, others had collapsed, but part of it was still passable. On May 5th, Hansen went down into the mine alone, without official permission, secretly. He took flashlights, ropes, and a supply of water. The first level was empty. Traces of collapses, rusty rails. The second level was partially flooded. On the third, he found something strange. Fresh boot prints. Someone had been here recently. He followed the tracks. They led to a side tunnel blocked by rocks. But the blockage was artificial. The rocks were laid too neatly. Hansen began to clear the debris. Behind it was a passageway, narrow but passable. And there, in the depths, he saw a light. Electric light, in an abandoned mine. The detective turned off his flashlight and crept into the darkness. The tunnel led to a small chamber. There were boxes of canned food and water canisters, and sleeping bags. 3 sleeping bags. But most importantly, there was a child's drawing on the wall, drawn in chalk. A house, a son, and the caption, Emily, 1998. They had been here, very recently. Hansen heard footsteps. Someone was walking down the tunnel. He hid behind the boxes. Frank Morrison entered the cell. He was carrying a bag of groceries. The old man looked around, put down the bag, and left. Hansen waited 5 minutes and followed him. Morrison walked confidently, knowing every turn. He led him to another exit from the mine, hidden by bushes. His red pickup truck was parked there. Hansen returned to the cell. He looked around more carefully. He found a notebook, Emily's diary. April 20th. Mom says we'll be able to get out soon. Mr. Frank is kind. He brings me books and pencils. But I'm scared. That bad man might come back. Bad man? Not Morrison? March 30th. He came yesterday. Mom cried after he left. She said we have to be patient, that if we leave now, he'll find us and kill us. Hansen photographed the pages. Who was he? And why was Morrison helping them hide? That evening, Hansen went to Morrison's house. The old man opened the door, saw the detective, and tried to close it. But Hansen stuck his foot in. I know they're in the mine. I saw the camera. Morrison turned pale. And I know you're helping them. Why? The old man slumped his shoulders. Come in, but you don't understand what you're getting yourself into. They sat down in the kitchen. Morrison poured whiskey for himself and the detective. My father didn't die in that accident, he began. He faked his death, and he killed Patrick O'Brien. Why? Patrick found a rich vein. My father wanted it for himself. They were 50-50 partners. But greed. My father pushed Patrick into the mine. Then he blew up the entrance to make it look like a cave-in. How did you find out? My father confessed on his deathbed in '85. I've lived with this burden my whole life. Our wealth is built on blood." And Mary found out? She found the documents. Her grandmother knew everything but kept quiet out of fear. Mary decided to restore justice. She came to me in early November. "And you?" I was ready to give up everything, sign the papers, give them back their share. But there's a problem. "What is it?" "My nephew, Jacob. He inherited my father's cruelty. When he found out that Mary was claiming the inheritance, he went berserk. He said he'd kill them if they didn't disappear." "Why didn't you go to the police?" Morrison smiled bitterly. "Jacob is the deputy sheriff. He has connections everywhere. Half the police force owes him." Hansen began to understand the scale of the problem. On November 15th, "I warned Mary at the gas station. I told her Jacob was watching her. I gave her the address of a safe place, the old mine entrance. I told her to hide there for a couple of days while I talked to Jacob. But something went wrong? Jacob tracked them down, found them in the mine. I barely made it. If it weren't for me, he would have killed them on the spot." "What happened?" "I hit him with a shovel. He fell into the mine, into an old shaft. It's 70 meters deep." "Is he dead?" "Yes, and now Mary and Emily can't come out. If they show up, they'll be charged with the murder of the sheriff's deputy. And I can't testify. They'll lock me up too." "That's why they're hiding." "Yes, for 5 months now. I bring them food and water. I set up a camera. But this can't go on forever." Hansen thought for a moment. It was a stalemate. But there had to be a way out. "Where is Jacob's body?" "At the bottom of the mine. The shaft is flooded 30 meters down." "Did they look for it?" "Yes, but they decided he had fled to Mexico. He had problems with casinos, debts." "I need to talk to Mary." Morrison shook his head. "It's dangerous. Jacob has friends. They're watching." "Then pass her a note. I'll come up with a plan." On May 10th, Hansen received a reply from Mary. She confirmed everything Morrison had said. She added details. Jacob had a whole network. Corruption, money laundering through old mines. She had found out about it by accident while looking for her grandfather's documents. Hansen began compiling a dossier, secretly using his old connections. By June, he had a folder full of dirt on half the county police force. But the most important thing was still missing: proof of Mary's innocence. On June 20th, something unexpected happened. David Collins came to Hansen. "Detective, I know you're still looking. Thank you." "How do you know?" "Mrs. Parker saw your car at the mines. She's my great-aunt." "David, if you could contact Mary, what would you say?" The man began to cry. "That I love her, that I'm waiting, that I don't care what happened. The main thing is that they come back." Hansen made up his mind. He told David the truth, everything he knew. David listened, clenching his fists. "That Jacob," Morrison did the right thing. "Legally, it's murder. According to the law, Jacob should have been in prison, but he was on the other side of the law. I'm working on a plan. We need to legalize Mary and Emily, but to do that, we need proof that Jacob was a criminal." "How can I help?" "You can't. Just wait and keep quiet." In July, Hansen found a lead. Jacob's ex-girlfriend, Christina Lopez, agreed to testify. She had recordings of conversations where Jacob bragged about his business. But Christina was afraid. She was living in Denver under a false name. "They'll kill me if they find out," she said. "I'll get you protection." "How? Half the cops work for them." Hansen turned to the FBI. The feds were interested. Police corruption, money laundering. It was their jurisdiction. August. A secret investigation began. The FBI planted agents. They gathered evidence. Hansen continued to bring food to the mine. Mary and Emily held on, but it was clear that the long isolation was taking its toll, especially on the child. "Emily is afraid to even go into the next tunnel," Mary wrote. "She says there are bad people everywhere." September. The FBI was ready to move in, but they needed a reason to arrest the entire network. Then Hansen came up with a risky plan. "We'll stage the discovery of Jacob's body. We'll say we drained the mine for inspection. His friends will panic and start destroying evidence. We'll catch them red-handed." The plan worked. On September 25th, the body was found. More precisely, Hansen accidentally saw something at the bottom of the mine during a routine inspection. Panic broke out instantly. Corrupt cops rushed to burn documents and transfer money. The FBI caught them all in 3 days. But Mary and Emily still couldn't get out. Formally, they were wanted, and the story with Jacob needed an explanation. October 1988. Hansen retires. The official reason is health problems. In reality, his superiors found out about his independent actions. "You violated all protocols, Hansen." "I saved a woman and a child." "You hid them from the investigation." "I protected them from killers in police uniform." Retirement without pension. But Hansen had no regrets. He continued to work, now as a private detective. And he had an influential ally, federal prosecutor Margaret Stone. "Your file helped put 12 corrupt officials behind bars," she said. "I'll help get Mary and Emily legalized, but it will take time." Time passed slowly. 1 year, 2, 3. Mary and Emily moved to a safe house in Canada. Frank Morrison arranged the paperwork through his connections. Their new names were Sarah and Lily Johnson. David visited them in secret. Once a month, 10 hours by car to the border, then another 5 to a small town in British Columbia. "Dad!" Emily threw herself into his arms. But they couldn't live together. It was too dangerous. The year was 2001. Emily went to school under a new name. Mary worked in a library. It was a quiet life for quiet people. But at night, Emily screamed in her sleep. She saw dark tunnels and heard Jacob's footsteps. "She needs therapy," Mary told David. "But how do I explain to a psychologist that a child lived in a mine for a year?" The year is 2003. The main figures in the corruption case have been convicted, but everyone has forgotten about Mary and Emily. Officially, they are still missing. Hansen didn't give up. He wrote petitions and gathered new evidence. He proved that Jacob had attacked first. He found a witness, an old vagrant who had seen Jacob walking toward the mine with a gun on November 15th. 2005. A breakthrough. The new governor, an anti-corruption crusader, took an interest in the case. He promised a pardon if Mary would testify about Jacob's schemes. But there were problems. Some of Jacob's accomplices had been released from prison. They were looking for Mary. They wanted revenge. "We can't take any chances," Morrison was adamant. "Let them live in Canada." But Emily was growing up. She was 16 now. She wanted to go home. She wanted a normal life. She wanted to go to college under her own name. "Mom, how much longer are we going to hide?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know." 2007. Hansen fell seriously ill. Lung cancer. The doctors gave him a year, 2 at most. "I have to finish this," he told Morrison. "I have to bring them home." He gathered his last strength. He went to Washington. He got a meeting with the Attorney General. "This is a gross injustice," he argued. "A mother and daughter have been hiding for 10 years for a crime they didn't commit." The case moved forward. Federal Witness Protection Program. New documents. The official version was that Mary and Emily had been in protective custody all these years because of threats from a criminal gang. March 2008. Hansen died in a hospice. David and Morrison were by his side. His last words were, "Tell them. They can come back. I kept my promise." But fate had another twist in store. October 5th, 2008. Michael Torres descended into the old Morgan mine with a heavy heart. 6 months had passed since Hansen's death, and the old detective had never seen Mary and Emily return home. Inspecting abandoned mines was routine work. A state safety program required all old workings to be checked. Michael was a young geological engineer just a year out of college in Denver. At a depth of 120 meters, his flashlight caught something unusual: a pink children's jacket. Michael picked it up, and a folded piece of paper fell out of the pocket. Mom said to go to exit number 3. The man in the helmet will help us. It was a child's handwriting. Michael took out his radio. Base, this is Torres. I've found evidence related to an old missing persons case. I need the police. An hour later, the mine was swarming with police officers. The new sheriff, Tom Richardson, an honest cop from another state, came down himself. This is the Collins case, he said. 11 years ago, never solved. A new search began, and then something incredible happened. In a side tunnel, they found a whole cache of documents, photographs, and diaries. Among them was a complete file compiled by the late Hansen. My God, the sheriff read page after page. This is a whole detective novel. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. In an old backpack were documents about land rights, the very ones that started it all, and a letter from Mary, dated September 2008. If you are reading this, something has happened to us or to Mr. Morrison. Please know that we are alive. We are in Nelson, Canada. We are living under the names Sarah and Lily Johnson. Please find my husband David and tell him. The sheriff didn't read any further. It was personal. He immediately contacted David Collins. He rushed over in an hour, even though he now lived in Denver. They're alive. The sheriff handed him the letter. Your wife and daughter are alive. David collapsed to his knees and wept. 11 years of waiting, secret meetings, fear, and now official confirmation. Where are they? In Canada, but there's a problem. The sheriff showed him the rest of the documents, the story with Jacob, the corruption, the murder. Formally, your wife is an accomplice to murder, even if it was self-defense. What can we do? I'll contact the feds. This is their jurisdiction, but we need Morrison. He's a key witness. Frank Morrison was found in a nursing home in Durango, 72 years old, a bad heart, but his memory was clear. I've been waiting for this day, he said. I'm ready to tell everything. Federal Marshal James Coleman arrived the next day. He listened to Morrison and studied the documents. An incredible story. But there's good news. We can classify this as extended self-defense. Jacob was armed and threatened to kill a child. Morrison was protecting them. What about harboring a fugitive? Given the corruption in the local police department, it was the only way to save their lives. There are precedents. On October 15th, exactly 10 days after the discovery, an official delegation arrived in Nelson, British Columbia. Federal Marshal, Sheriff Richardson, David Collins, and Frank Morrison. A small house on the outskirts of town. A front garden with roses. On the porch, a woman with chestnut hair, already touched by gray. Mary? David couldn't believe it. David! She threw herself into his arms. A girl came out of the house, 19 years old, with light curls and freckles, the same brown eyes as her mother. Dad? Emily said uncertainly. The three of them hugged each other. Everyone was crying. Even the stern marshal was wiping his eyes. Mrs. Collins, the marshal gave them time to reunite. I'm here to officially inform you that all charges against you have been dropped. You can go home. Really? Mary couldn't believe it. Absolutely true. What's more, the state of Colorado is prepared to pay compensation for the illegal prosecution and moral damage. And the land? Grandfather's documents? The land rights will be restored. Mr. Morrison has already signed all the papers. The old man stepped forward. Forgive me. For everything. For my father's sins. For not being able to protect you better. You saved our lives. Mary hugged him. Without you, we wouldn't be alive. On October 20th, the Collins family returned to Silverton. The whole town welcomed them. Mrs. Parker cried with happiness. Mary's former students, now adults, brought flowers. The house had stood empty all these years. David couldn't bring himself to sell it. He believed the family would return. "Everything is so small," Emily marveled. "It was bigger in my memory." "You've grown," Mary smiled. They didn't sleep the first night at home. They sat in the kitchen, drank tea, and told each other about the years they had lived. "I thought about you every day," David said. "Every day." "We did too." Emily drew our house from memory. She has a whole album. Emily brought out a thick notebook, dozens of drawings. The house, her dad at work, school, friends, the whole life that had been taken from her. "I want to be a lawyer," she said, "to help people like us, people who find themselves in desperate situations." "You'll be a wonderful lawyer," David said, stroking her head. In the morning, a reporter from the Denver Post came to see them. The story was too incredible not to tell. 11 years on the run because of corrupt cops? That's a movie script? But Mary was cautious. "We just want to live in peace. People need to know the truth about corruption, about how the system failed you." In the end, they agreed to one big interview. The story made the front page. Mother and daughter who came back from the dead. The reaction was huge. Letters of support poured in from all over the country. Offers for a book, a movie. But the Collins family just wanted peace. Mary returned to school. She was welcomed back with open arms. The children, having learned her story, looked at her as a heroine. Emily enrolled in law school at the University of Colorado. A criminal law professor, upon learning her story, made her his assistant. "You have a unique experience, Miss Collins. You know the system from both sides." David got a promotion. The company, learning what he had been through, appreciated his dedication and resilience. But the most important thing happened at Christmas. The whole family gathered around the table. Mary, David, Emily, and 2 guests, Frank Morrison and Michael Torres. "If it weren't for you, Michael, we would have stayed in Canada," Mary said gratefully. "I was just doing my job." "No, you did much more than that. You gave us our lives back." Frank Morrison raised his glass. "To Detective Hansen. He didn't live to see this day, but his persistence made it possible." "To Hansen?" everyone echoed. After dinner, Emily sat down at the piano. She had learned to play in Canada. She began to play Silent Night. Mary sang along. Then the others joined in. "You know," Frank said, "my father deprived your family of their inheritance. The land we got back is worth millions now. Rare earth metals were found there." "We weren't after the money," Mary replied. "We wanted justice." "But the money will allow Emily to get a better education, to open her own law firm." "Frank's right," David agreed. "It's yours, by right." Emily thought about it. "I want to set up a fund to help the missing and their families. We'll call it the Hansen Fund." Everyone agreed it was a wonderful idea. In the spring of 2009, the last members of Jacob's gang went on trial. Mary testified. She calmly and clearly told the whole truth. "He said he would kill my daughter if I didn't disappear, that he had people everywhere. I believed him. And as the investigation showed, he wasn't bluffing." Everyone was convicted. The last page of this story had been turned. In the summer, Emily met a guy, a medical student, kind and understanding. When she told him her story, he wasn't scared. "You're the strongest girl I know," he said. "I just wanted to survive and protect my mother." "That's what makes you strong." In the fall of 2010, the Hansen Foundation was established. Its first case involved a teenage girl who had run away from her abusive father. The police didn't believe her and sent her back. Emily, now a certified lawyer, took on the case. She used all her connections and all her experience. The girl was rescued, and her father was put in prison. "How did you know she was telling the truth?" asked a reporter. "I saw the same fear in the mirror. I saw it for 11 years." The story of Mary and Emily became legendary. Books were written and documentaries were made about them. But they themselves lived quietly, avoiding fame. On the 20th anniversary of their disappearance, in November 2017, a memorial was unveiled in Silverton. Not to the victims, but to the survivors, to those who did not give up. Emily, now a well-known lawyer, gave a speech. "We hid in the darkness of the mine, but we never lost hope. Thank you to everyone who never forgot us, who searched, who believed. Detective Hansen, Mr. Morrison, Michael Torres, my father. You are all heroes in this story." Frank Morrison died a month later, peacefully in his sleep. He left his entire fortune to the Hansen Foundation. "Let the blood-stained money serve justice," he wrote in his will. Today, years later, Emily Collins is a federal prosecutor. She specializes in missing persons cases and corruption in law enforcement. She has a 100% clearance rate. "Where does your intuition come from?" her colleagues ask. "I know how both victims and criminals think. I've been on both sides of fear." Mary has retired, but continues to advise families of missing persons. She teaches them not to lose hope. "My daughter came back after 11 years. Miracles happen. You just have to believe." David wrote a book about their story, 11 Years of Waiting. It was a bestseller that year. All proceeds go to the fund. The old Morgan mine is closed forever. The entrance is bricked up. A plaque reads, "In memory of all those lost and found." But once a year, on November 15th, the Collins family comes there. They stand in silence. They remember. "Mom," Emily asked once, "do you regret it?" "What?" "That you found those documents. If you hadn't found them, nothing would have happened." Mary was silent for a long time. The truth always comes out. If not through us, then through someone else. But I'm glad we restored justice. Your great-grandfather would be proud. There is a photograph hanging in Emily's office, an 8-year-old girl with a doll. The caption reads, "Emily Collins, 1997, lost and found." Every client who sees the photo asks about it. "It's a reminder," Emily replies, "that there is a way out of any darkness. You just have to keep going. And remember that somewhere there is someone looking for you. There always is." The story is over, but its echo lives on in every child who has been saved, in every family that has been reunited, in every missing person case that has been solved. Now, a question for you, dear listeners. If you were in Mary's place, would you go to the police right away, risking your daughter's life, or would you hide like she did, hoping for the best? Write in the comments. What's more important, the law or the safety of a child?